This super easy gift bag will come in handy throughout the year. The medium-sized gift bag was designed to neatly store 6 to 8 indoor snowballs and becomes part of the fun when it doubles as the hoop and basket. The tallest gift bag is the wine cover. It is amply sized to fit even those chubby bottles of champagne, while the small bag easily accommodates those difficult to wrap extras. Although I will demonstrate the techniques while making the one-colored bag, at the end I'll slip in a few tips for changing colors too. Start by pushing 50 needles into hold position and E-wrap each needle from left to right. The companion pattern for this project includes all 3 variations. Download it for free by following the instructions in the description below. And while you're there, take a moment to subscribe. Once the needles are E-wrapped, hang the cast-on comb with the hooks facing away from you. After a few rows, you may want to add a little weight. Here's the easy part. Knit 140 rows. At this point, we will turn our work so that the knit side of the fabric faces you. First, take a free pass to move the carriage to the left. On this machine, I push all the needles to hold and the left lever to H and move the carriage to the left. Check the instructions on your specific machine. Then, push the stitches toward the latches so that you can put the stopper plate from your garter bar set over the needle butts and the gate pegs to stabilize the needles without trapping any of the stitches. Open the latches on the hooks with a cut-off plastic card and align the eyelets of the garter bar over the hooks. Holding the garter bar even with the needles, pull the stitches onto the garter bar. Then push slightly back toward the machine to open the latches. Remove the garter bar. Be careful to turn the work without dropping the cast-on comb off the first row. We will need it in place for the next step. Align the eyelets to the needles and return the knitting to the machine. With the Chris Crafter garter bar held perpendicular to the needle bed and the stitches at the base of the bar, align the slots to the needles so the hooks are just below the stitches. Tilt the base of the garter bar toward the machine to catch the stitches onto the hooks. Then remove it with a downward motion. Place the garter bar on the needle bed as we will need it for the next step. Now, with the knitting turned, the hooks of the cast-on comb are facing you. Carefully lift up the cast-on comb and remove the weights. Slide the garter bar behind the cast-on comb, but up against the comb. The hooks of the cast-on comb keep the stitches spaced perfectly, so the garter bar will evenly pick up the stitches. Pull the stitches down onto the eyelets of the garter bar. If you have the extension screwed on the garter bar, as I do here, you may need to lift the cast-on comb up over the screws. Check the stitches and once satisfied, carefully lift the comb up to release the stitches from it. If needed, use the plastic card to open the latches on the machine. Then, align the garter bar to the needles. Check the edge stitches in particular because the cast-on comb will sometimes come undone at the edge stitches, and those stitches don't get transferred to the garter bar. Once the stitches are transferred from the garter bar to the needles, the edge stitches can easily be picked up with an eyelet tool. At this point, set the garter bar aside, remove the stopper plate, and push the knitting back against the needle bed. Set the stitch size 2 full numbers larger if possible, or at least as far as possible. For this project, we will knit 1 row to close the seam, then we will knit 1 more row to provide extra ease in the seam to compensate should it be necessary. We will work a latch tool bind off from right to left. I'll see you at the end. When you get to the end, leave an 18-inch yarn tail. Thread the long yarn tail into a yarn needle. Pick up the inner half of the edge stitch every other row along the selvage edge. Periodically, pull on the yarn to gather the edge. When you return to the seam, firmly draw up the yarn as much as you can, being careful not to break the yarn. Turn the bag so the knit side is on the outside and bring the threaded yarn needle through the hole to the outside. Form little pleats along the edge and secure by sewing through the edge stitches at the top of each little pleat. Every time you go around the edge, pull the yarn to close the hole just a little bit more. After a few times, the hole will be completely closed. Now, draw the yarn to the inside of the bag and continue to stitch under the edge stitches of each pleat to reinforce the gathers at the bottom of the bag. When all is secure, weave in the end and set the bag aside while you knit the tie. To make the tie, E-wrap 3 needles. I like to add a little weight to start. You'll also want to knit anywhere from 28 to 36 inches. The medium size takes 36 inches. Thread the needle with the yarn tail. Remove the 3 stitches from the machine by popping them off from underneath. Sew through the end a couple of times to secure the stitches. Then bring the yarn through to the purl side and baste down the middle of the tie a few inches. Make an overhand knot as close to the end of the tie as possible and trim the excess yarn tail. You can complete the other end of the tie the same way. Find the short yarn tail on the open edge of the bag and weave it down the seam about 15 rows. Let the natural roll of the edge turn under. Bring it through the seam to the knit side of the bag. Use it to stitch the center point of the tie to the bag. You can put your snowballs right in this bag. It fits. The medium size fits 6 snowballs really comfortably. And then you tie this in a bow, just a regular bow, and pull it up. And you'll see, then you can arrange this into how many little pleats you want on it. Snug it up and put a bow on it. And that is our little gift bag. Here are 5 tips for changing colors while making the gift bag. Number 1, maintain visual continuity by selecting one color to alternate between the scrap yarn. Just carry it up the right edge of the knitting. Number 2, weave in ends as you go. Just pull needles to hold and go over and under at least 10 needles with the yarn end. Number 3, bury color changes at the bottom of the bag by placing them on the right edge. Number 4, if you run out of yarn at the left edge, weave in the end, but take a free pass to return to the right before adding the next color. Make sure to back off 1 row on the row counter. And number 5, trim all ends before you turn the knitting and close up the bag. I hope you enjoyed this quick and practical project. Please take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications of upcoming videos. Happy machine knitting!